And good morning. You're listening to A Certain Degree on WPRK 91.5. We're back on the air in case you hadn't noticed. We're so glad to be here. We're off the air for like 11 months. And my name is Nick. Every week I do a special show. Not a special show, but every week I do a show with a special guest. And this week's guest, Scott White. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Rise Above Tattoos. So people can follow Rise Above on Facebook and Instagram.
Rise Above FL.
Yep.
On Instagram. RiseAboveTattoo.com. That's about mostly what we focus on.
And for Scott White, if we wanted to follow you,
Scott White Art and Large Teeth on Instagram.
On the Instagrams.
On the Instagrams.
Yeah. It's always plural when you have more than one
definitely.
Account.
Yes.
So if you missed any of the show today, Scott's been talking about tattoo work, traditional art. We talked about inspiration. We had some bad business ideas. We got to know Scott a little bit better. And then also some advice for somebody going in and maybe looking for a tattoo and how to, interact with the artist and try to figure out what the right fit is for them.
Yeah.
Accurate?
Yeah.
All of this is an accurate statement.
So far, this has happened.
Well, you know what's going to happen now?
Something good.
Something great. A pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
Yeah. So I do this every week. Basically, what happens is every Monday is when I do my show. And every Monday is the anniversary of something, often many different things. And so today was an anniversary. I kind of had poetry on the mind because I was at an event a couple weeks ago called Pachakacha, and it opened with a poem and it ended with a poem. And, sometimes you don't remember if you don't see poetry, especially being read all the time or being performed, you kind of forget how powerful it can be.
Sure.
So the first one was read by Susan Lilley, who I don't know if you know her, but she was named the Poet Laureate for Orlando last year.
Yes, I know the name.
Yeah, so she read her piece Fall, which if you haven't read, it's out there. It's beautiful. It's about Orlando, and it just hits like it's this. If you've lived here for a while, you understand everything there is to know about Orlando from that poem. Sometimes poetry, if it maybe in song form or maybe just read out loud like that, can speak to us in a way that prose can't. What I was doing is when researching this, I came across the name Emma Lazarus. And so she passed away today in 1887. She had a very interesting life, but in general, we're going to know her, you're going to know her from a piece called The New Colossus. And so I asked Susan Lilley, because I had just met her a couple weeks ago, I said, Susan, will you help me out with this? You're a poet. You've got to be the right person for this job to talk about this poem that Emma Lazarus wrote. Will you give us a hand? And so she did. And so she's here live via recording because that's how most things are done these
technology.
Days. So Susan Lilley is going to be asking the questions. We're going to be answering the questions. Mostly you, because I wrote this, so I know what the answers are.
I'll do my best.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Susan, take it away.
Hi there, everybody out in Radio Land. Emma Lazarus started writing poetry at the age of 11 and had many pieces, both poetry and prose, published over the course of her short life. Her inspiration came from the events of the day, such as the American Civil War, as well as her Jewish ancestry. You probably know her poem, The New Colossus, from these lines. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Here's your first question. Have you been to the Statue of Liberty, and what was that experience like for you?
So what do you think? Have you been there?
I was just there recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's actually how I recognized the name.
Yo, okay. So you saw the plaque up.
Yeah. Yeah. We went up to New York in June.
This is you and your fam?
My family, and then I went back up in August. But June, we actually did the Statue of Liberty and Emma Island tour, or Ellis Island tour.
Yeah.
My daughter really wanted to do the Statue of Liberty tour, so we got a tour guide who oddly was from Orlando. Yeah, and she asked, do you want to do the standard tour? Do you want to do my tour? We said we would do your tour, so she had separate binders, and we did the whole thing. We got there at I want to say 9:15 in the morning, and there was 19 people on the island. We had the whole island to ourselves.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was, yeah.
Because it gets packed.
Yeah, and I hadn't been there since I was a kid.
Like, so you had done it when you were a kid?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I hadn't been, I've been to New York City many times, but I never did touristy stuff. And
right.
My daughter's really into history. So
I was going to ask, where did that inspiration for her come from?
She's really into American history at the moment. So we did that, and it was incredible. It was so worth it.
So what was something you saw on this tour that you would really stuck with you?
I think a lot of the info that we were getting, the Ellis Island info,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one of the most fascinating things to me was when you would get there and you would get a physical, you know, they would check you to make sure you didn't have any, you know, sores, wounds, anything that you
Sure.
And they had these little hooks that they would check your eyelids with because, you know, back then it was very common. There's a disease that would make your eyelids grow inward. So in old movies, you see all the blind orphan kids like lingering in the streets of New York City. That's what it was.
Oh,
and they later found that the reason that it was spreading so fast, the name kind of slips my mind at the moment, but was because they weren't cleaning the tools. So they would run this hook under every person's eyelid to check to see if they had any signs of this. And then if they didn't, they would go on to the next person. If they did, they would go on to the next person. And that was really strange to me. That was really kind of fascinating. I think the whole experience was great.
Yeah.
Like it was, you know, being in the Statue of Liberty. You can't go up as high anymore, you know, for obvious reasons. This was actually the day after that lady just scaled the statue in protest. Did you see this in June?
Yeah.
So we were there like the day after that happened. And
so you threw down all your climbing stuff and you're like, well, somebody already did it.
I don't really use climbing stuff. You know,
okay.
I just
you just freestyle.
Yeah, organically.
Yeah.
I don't even notice how long my fingernails are. But yeah, that was really interesting. Just being at Ellis Island and being at the statue and kind of going through what, you know, we did a foot tour of what people would do when they actually go through. When they got off the boats and where they had to stand, and it was interesting.
That's really neat. Well, let's see if Susan had a similar experience or if she climbed the statue.
Now, I have not actually been to the Statue of Liberty, but I have boated around the Statue of Liberty many times and admired Lady Liberty from afar. And I have to say, I thought of Emma Lazarus's lines every time. It's moving, I guess, to be close up, but definitely out in the harbor looking at her.
That was actually my experience. So I went up with family. I think it was actually 2001. I think July or August of 2001. So it was right before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw the line of people coming off trying to get back on the boat. And so we just went on the ferry around it and just stayed on. And it was pretty amazing to see Manhattan in the background.
Yeah, when I went back in August, there's a band called the Helicopters that I love, and they never play. They played 2 shows in the U.S., and one of them was on a riverboat that circled the Statue of Liberty while they played in this riverboat, and it was awesome. You know,
it's great.
Yeah, I got to listen to a band I love while standing there and just staring at the Statue of Liberty and being out in the harbor. It was pretty intense. It was at night. It was really beautiful.
I like that as a bad business idea too, where we could have maybe in Lake Eola, just have the concert on a boat that's just going around.
Yeah. Or we could just pull like a little floaty device from behind one of the Swan boats.
And the band's playing on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in for that. All right, let's get back to Susan with the next question. You're good. You're 1 for 1 so far.
Cool.
Because you answered it.
I got this.
Yeah.
The poem is an integral part of the statue's story, but that wasn't the intention. Originally, Lazarus wrote it for an arts and literary auction to help raise money for Lady Liberty. What exactly were they raising money for? A, the pedestal she stands on, B, extra statue polish, or C, David Copperfield insurance?
So what were they raising money for?
The pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just learned this when I was there during the tour.
Well, see, I had no idea. So this is the date that Emma Lazarus passed away. So that's the only reason. I had no idea that you were just up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're an expert on this.
I'm everywhere.
Yeah, you're everywhere I want to be.
Yeah.
You're Amex. Did you watch the David Copperfield thing when it was happening?
Yeah, I did.
Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I still kind of want to go back and see that again. But yeah, so it was. Let's let Susan answer. She knows the answer.
The Bartholdi Pedestal Fund conducted this auction and other fundraising events so the statue could have a proper foundation. The new Colossus was written for the auction only, and it wasn't read at the opening of the statue in 1886. It was a friend of Lazarus named Georgina Schuyler who ensured the plaque with the poem was installed on the pedestal in 1903.
Yes, almost 20 years after it was the statue was finished was when the poem was actually put up on there. So pretty interesting. So you two for two.
Interesting.
You got it.
Robot Susan has all the goods.
See, she's really good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she should be a professional. Susan, if you're listening, I'm hoping you are because
audiobooks.
Yeah, audiobooks, and we'll talk about her book coming out here in a second too. Okay, you ready for your third question?
Mm-hmm.
We're all familiar with the huddled masses part of the poem. There's so much more to it. It opens with these lines. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. Here, Lazarus is comparing Lady Liberty to the ancient Greek Colossus of Rhodes. This brings up the obvious question, in a fight, who would win? The Statue of Liberty or the Colossus?
Who you got?
Good question.
Right? It really is the most obvious question.
Good question.
I'm torn on this because being Greek, you know, what I've been taught since I was a kid by all my family is that Greeks are the best. Greeks came up with everything. And everyone should be thanking us constantly for stuff like math and democracy, philosophy, all of those things.
I think the real question here, Nick, is would they actually fight?
Okay. All right. Where are you going with this?
I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Carpe diem, man.
You think they'd hang out? You think they'd it would be like a Batman versus Superman type of fight where they think they're enemies, but they're really pals?
Yeah, I think the principles of why they would be fighting would have to be discussed.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'd like to think that would be the last option. Yeah.
Sit down. Let's try to find a compromise between America and Greece.
Yeah, I like to think that Lady Liberty, you know, she'll stand her ground.
Yeah.
But I don't think that, you know, maybe she doesn't want to engage so quickly.
She wants to come up with a peaceful resolution.
Yeah, let's look at our options. You know, maybe sit down with a pumpkin spice latte.
Knowing Greeks like I do, I'm sure the Colossus from Rhodes would be very open to compromise.
Okay.
And not bullheaded and stubborn in some way.
Yeah, let's peacefully resolve this.
That was me being sarcastic about Greek people, by the way.
I'm not Greek. I can't say that.
So let's see what Susan had to say.
I say the Statue of Liberty would totally win. She's angry. She's upset about what's going on these days. Her welcoming stance could easily turn to anger. Just my opinion, but that's who I think could win.
Yeah.
She could win, but to your point, there might be some compromise. There might be a sit down.
She could win.
A little pumpkin spice latte and a a euro maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because those two things go together.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. So because Susan's such a good performer, and she's not a performer, but she's so good at presenting poetry, she's so good at reading poetry, I did want her to read the whole thing. So we're going to have and you just read it recently, but
Yeah,
man,
I'd
it
love to
gets
hear it
me
again.
every time.
Emma Lazarus wrote about the Statue of Liberty serving as a beacon for immigrants arriving in America 3 years before the statue was erected. And here's the full piece. The new Colossus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Wow, this poem hits me every time, right in the heart. And it's amazing to learn the history about Emma Lazarus, whose life was cut short, but her words so powerful. And the fact that she wrote this before the statue was even built, just sensing the amazing imagery and the meaning and symbolism of that welcoming lady with the torch. Beautiful.
I mean, just goosebumps. And especially now that I know, like I kind of always took it for granted, like the teeming masses and the give me you're tired, you're poor. It never occurred to me that there was so much more to it, and there was so much meaning and symbolism.
Yeah, we
behind
hear
it.
that. We hear that one part.
Yeah.
Over the course of our lives, and now we hear it more often because of the political
Everything that's
climate.
going on. Yeah.
So it's intense.
You did very well on
That's
that
it.
thing. Yeah. So let's let Susan get out of here and go back to writing poetry.
Well, thanks, Nick, so much for having me. I've always wanted to be on the radio, and you've made my wish come true.
So that was Susan Lilley, everyone. I hope we all learned something today. I know I did. As I mentioned, Susan is the Poet Laureate of Orlando, and I thank her very much for participating today. I hope to have her on as a guest sometime as well. But she's really busy. So she's an educator here locally, both at the high school and the college level. And she has a book of poetry coming out in April from our friends at Burrow Press. And you can become a subscriber and get the book along with 3 other amazing titles if you so choose. So you get that book, you get all 4 of the books coming out from Florida's, and one of the only presses in Florida, but the only literary press in Florida for sure. So thank you, Scott, too, for taking the quiz.
Hey, yeah. Thanks.
And
That was
going
fun.
to, I really appreciate you going back in time and going to the Statue of Liberty just so you be prepared for this.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm everywhere. Yeah. I got eyes and ears all over this city.
I like it. Well, you're listening to A Certain Degree. Let's play a song.